About 10 years ago, I started a conversation with a classmate of mine here at UC Berkeley that has brought me back to my alma mater today. My friend and I had just returned from our summers abroad, his in the West Bank and mine in West Africa. And as we exchanged stories about our student projects from the summer, we couldn't wait to enter the real world to start making some real change. But little did we know then, one of us had already come up with a solution for global change. A simple solution that could save people from the #1 cause of death in the world. I wish I could say that person was me, but it was actually that guy up in the tree. My friend Daniel and founder of Microclinic International, with whom I now work. So, to start, what is the #1 killer in the world today? Even though both my friend and I had just returned from conflict-ridden, poverty-struck countries, the answer to this question is not war or malnutrition, it's chronic disease. Chronic disease includes cardiovascular disease, diabetes, HIV, basically anything that is long-lasting and requires long-term care. Chronic disease causes 60% of deaths worldwide, and of these deaths, 80% occur in low and middle-income countries. So, what's the solution? Contagion. This looks like the problem, but in fact, it is also the solution. When people think of contagion, they typically think of infectious diseases, like the flu, or HIV, or anything else that spreads from one person to another. However, research has shown that even non-communicable diseases, like diabetes and obesity, can spread from one person to another, because this is socially contagious. If you think about it, this makes common sense. If your friends smoke, you're more likely to smoke. If your friends eat junk food, you're more likely to eat junk food. The good news is that if bad behaviors are contagious, then so can good behaviors. And this is what we at Microclinic International call contagious health, or more broadly speaking, social contagion. So utilizing this social phenomenon, we develop microclinics around the world to tackle chronic disease in under-resourced communities. So microclinics are not bricks and mortar hospital clinics. Instead, they utilize a resource that is far more valuable and present in every community, no matter how poor. And that is human beings and their capacity for change. So microclinics are not buildings. They are social networks of individuals who come together to tackle a life-threatening disease. The first microclinics were developed in the West Bank as a student project to address diabetes. Diabetes is a huge problem in this part of the world. Of the top 10 countries with the highest prevalence of diabetes, 5 are in the Middle East. And in this area, burdened by conflict and lack of access to healthcare, we saw community members come together to share access to glucometers, health education, and social support. And news of the program spread to neighboring Jordan, where we are now expanding the model at a national scale. And research on this program is showing that the average participant is sustaining a 1-point drop in HbA1c, or blood sugar, years after the initial intervention, a change that could be life-saving. So as we expanded the microclinic model across the Middle East, we started to ask ourselves if this concept of contagious health is unique to Middle Eastern culture. And we found that the answer to this question was no when we brought microclinics to a very different part of the world, to Appalachia, Kentucky, in order to address diabetes as well as obesity and heart disease. In the former coal mining towns where we work, these areas suffer from some of the highest rates of poverty and chronic disease in the nation. An area with limited access to healthcare specialists and healthy foods, we saw many of the same challenges we encountered in the developing world. However, through this contagious health model, we started to see changes spread throughout the community. People started drinking unsweetened tea instead of sweet tea, baking chicken instead of frying it, and this is Kentucky, home of Colonel Sanders we're talking about. And not only that, but not only were the participants in our program starting to change their lifestyles, but their extended social networks were as well. One neighbor of a participant who we had never even met lost over 50 pounds simply by joining in some of these healthier lifestyle practices. And by the end of a randomized control trial that we were conducting on the program, we found that 95% of program participants who completed the program improved in at least one chronic disease risk factor. So as we expanded the microclinic model from addressing diabetes to some of its common comorbidities, heart disease and obesity, we started to ask ourselves if this model would work for a very different type of chronic condition, and that is HIV/AIDS. So turning to Lake Victoria, Kenya, we brought the program to an area that suffers from some of the highest HIV rates in the world. And in this rural Kenyan community, we discovered that the microclinic contagious health model doesn't only help people change behaviors, but also attitudes. In addition to helping program participants adhere to medication schedules and exercise healthier lifestyle practices, the intervention also helped reduce the stigma of HIV in the community to the point where 86% of participants who completed the program were willing to openly disclose their HIV status. And to fully understand what this means, I want to ask the audience a question today. How many of you have an STD? I don't see any hands raised, but imagine 30% of you did. And now imagine that this disease was essentially a death sentence, and that unless you were willing to raise your hand and ask for help, you would potentially die. So you see, by changing the way people think, we can give people a new chance at life. So the microclinic model has been shown to be an effective agent of change across cultures and across diseases, starting from one disease and then expanding to many diseases. But not everyone here today plans to make their change through issues of global health. So I want to share with you how can you use the social contagion model to be an effective tool for change for your cause as well. As an example, I was recently in Egypt to try to address the diabetes epidemic. But what I found was a disease that was much more pervasive, and that is a disease of sexual assault against women that was happening throughout the political protests and every day in the streets. However, to combat this problem, social movements started to try to change the behaviors and attitudes of society so that it would no longer be okay to be a perpetrator or a bystander. So through one person, a small group of people, and then a larger group of people, an entire society can change. So whatever your cause may be, whether that be health or gender equality, human rights or faith, the change starts with you. Here at Microclinic International, we have a saying, I can influence my health, I can influence the health of those around me, and together we can influence the health of the entire community. However, this is something that a wise philosopher figured out a long time ago. Confucius once said, to put the world in order, we must first put the nation in order. To put the nation in order, we must first put the family in order. And to put the family in order, we must first set ourselves right. So the only fortune that comes with this cookie is to be the contagion you wish to see in your world.
Welcome to American Pulse. Our special episode today is about healthcare. I'm privileged and honored to have Miss Leslie Lang as a guest on my show tonight. Miss Leslie is a senior vice president of Microclinic, and she's been doing a lot of work in the law field. She's a lawyer by profession, and finally she steered her direction to help the community, and she's working for an NGO, a nonprofit organization called Microclinic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morgan. It's a pleasure to be here on this sunny day in New York City.
And thank you for flying specifically for this from California. We really appreciate your presence.
It's a pleasure.
I would like to introduce yourself first to the viewers about your background, if you can give us some heads up.
Sure, absolutely. As you mentioned, I'm currently a Senior Vice President at Microclinic International. We are a global health nonprofit that is working on health behavior change to address chronic disease in under-resourced communities around the world. Some personal information about myself. I graduated with a degree in business from Berkeley and a degree in law from Harvard, which is a little bit different from what we're here to talk about today in terms of healthcare. But it started this route because I had a classmate at the time who was working on a diabetes project in the West Bank. His grandmother had passed away of diabetes and wanted to start a model to address this disease in under-resourced communities around the world. And recently, a few years back, he invited me to join this nonprofit, and now we are across 4 different continents. We started in the Middle East, we're now in the US, in Africa, and in other areas, and we're very excited to be on this show to talk about how we can also be involved in Egypt.
This is a wonderful opportunity, and we actually would like to welcome you to the Egyptian world, and we want to know, what can you deliver, what can you offer to Egypt, and how can we help you in doing that?
So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about what our nonprofit, Microclinic International, does. So we use a model that we call the microclinic model, which is based on the concept that healthy behaviors are contagious. So we all know that unhealthy behaviors like smoking is contagious. If your parents smoke, you're more likely to smoke. If your friends smoke, you're more likely to smoke. In the same way, if your friends and family eat healthy, exercise, get regular checkups at the doctor, you're more likely to do that. So based on this idea, we get friends and families in communities around the world, and in particular in Egypt, it's a very family-oriented, community-oriented society. We get groups of people together to help take the future of their health into their own hands by providing health education and using peer support to work across what we call the 4 M's of health behavior change.
4 M's.
4 M's, exactly.
Okay. So what are the M's?
So the 4 M's are meals, movement, medication, and monitoring. So meals are, how we eat, the food that we cook, the restaurants that we go to, the snacks that we eat, the beverages that we consume. Then there's movement, which is exercise.
I'm sorry to cut you off,
Sure,
but have you had any particular study on the Egyptian meals? Because with that, good luck. It's a lot of unhealthy meals there.
Well, I did study Egyptian meals by visiting Egypt and having some amazing
tasteful,
meals.
very tasteful.
Very, very tasty. But I think there are just small changes that people can make to make it healthy. The traditional Egyptian meals, I think, are very healthy. There's a lot of salad, a lot of dishes made with eggplant and chickpeas. Even the pasta-based meals, you can change it by making it whole wheat pasta, and of course the grilled meats. But I think we're seeing more and more fast food and snacks and soda, and that's not part of the traditional Egyptian diet, but it's what we're seeing more and more of, which is why we're seeing such a huge diabetes and obesity and heart disease epidemic in the country today.
Yeah. And then what's the second M? Sorry.
No problem. So the second M is movement, and that's exercise. And, I think this is a problem across the world. We have easy access to cars now and different forms of transportation that doesn't require us to walk or to exercise in other ways. And, for example, in Egypt, I think there are already some wonderful things going on. So there's an organization I heard about, a movement called Cairo Runners, where they will block off streets at certain times in Egypt, in Cairo, so that men and women can run through the streets, feel safe about it, not have to compete with cars and pollution, and together run in a safe environment. But this program is really, and this model is really just about getting more people to do that. And you may not run a marathon, but how even in front of your television to incorporate a little bit of more movement and exercise into your day-to-day life. So that's the second M.
Okay, and then the third M?
And the third M is medication. So as I mentioned earlier, we address chronic disease primarily, and we started off with diabetes work in the West Bank. We're now expanding across the Middle East. We work on a national level in Jordan. We are working with UNRWA, the Palestinian refugee organization at the United Nations.
And then the fourth M?
And the fourth M is monitoring.
Okay.
So what that is basically keeping track of your progress. So checking your weight, checking your blood sugar, seeing the doctor regularly, and knowing your progress. I think there's a lot of social science studies about goal setting and meeting those goals. This is one very important aspect of health management, just knowing where you started from and how you're improving, and what of those other three health behaviors are helping you meet those improved health outcomes.
Can I swap two M's, the meals and the movements, with Michael Morgan, MN?
There we go. Now we have 6 M's.
All right. So basically, your program is more of an educational program to prevent things from happening, to prevent diabetes, high blood pressure, and all these chronic diseases. Why diabetes? And I'm sure my viewers have watched this so many times over and over on TVs, but I want to make sure and emphasize why diabetes is a very important disease to monitor.
Mm-hmm. So that's a very good question. And so diabetes, 1 out of 6 Egyptian adults has diabetes. 1 out of 6. And it's the country with the...
It's a very high percentage.
It's very high, and it is the country in the Middle East region with the highest number of diabetics. I think it's close to 8 million.
That's a lot.
So in terms of numbers, it's
close to
incredibly
10%.
high. It's close to 10%. Amongst adults, it's even higher because
Yes.
children tend not to develop diabetes unless it's type 1.
Yes.
But it's incredibly high. So I think for your viewers, if you were to ask one of your viewers, how many of you are diabetic or have a friend or a family member who's diabetic, I'm sure the vast majority, this would
They
be
know,
very
or they heard,
relatable.
or they have somebody in the house.
Exactly.
And it's a devastating disease. I mean, it's progress, and one day it's worse than the day before, and then it hits the kidneys and other things. It affects the nerves and the periphery and all of that. So what are the materials you're using to implement and reach out to the population?
So as you mentioned earlier, it's an education program, but I think it's more than just education. So as I mentioned previously, it's based on this idea that healthy behaviors are contagious. How do we get people to be healthier and to get their community to be healthier? So one aspect is education, but what we really believe is that it's that support that you get from your husband or your wife or your child or your neighbor or your parent. So what we do is we get groups of people who are already friends, who are already family members, and maybe, for example, maybe my husband is a diabetic and I am obese, but I'm close to being diabetic, but I'm pre-diabetic right now. Well, together we would go into the program, because if you go to the doctor alone and the doctor tells you, eat healthy and exercise, you leave that clinic and the likelihood of you actually doing it is very low. So what we do is we bring that entire group, the husband, the wife, the neighbor, and maybe another friend in together, and together they go through an education program. We do have a curriculum. It's available in Arabic, and they learn about healthy behaviors and about the 4 M's, but in a very fun and interactive way that tries to get them to together practice these healthy behaviors at home, and also spread it in their community.
You mentioned the word together many times, so I feel like there's a philosophy behind getting people together. Is it like because it's more encouraging to do together, or is it because you can reach out more for more people? What's the philosophy behind it?
It's both, and it's what we call the contagious health philosophy.
Contagious. Okay.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I think anything that we do alone, it's just harder to achieve. We may set out to tell ourselves, we're going to run every day. New Year's resolution, I'm going to run every morning 5 miles. But, unless you have a running partner who's going to be there with you, or, I'm on a diet and I am going to cut out desserts for this month, but at home your husband or wife brings home cake and cookies, and it's just very hard to do alone. So it's that support that together we're going to choose to be healthy.
Support is the word I was looking for.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I was looking for.
Absolutely.
The support. What is your success rate, and how do you measure?
So it's very important to us to measure the impact that we're having through this intervention, and we partner with researchers at the Harvard School of Public Health to measure the different projects around the world that we're working on. And in Jordan in particular, we have been monitoring a diabetes program that has shown that on average, people after 2 years from this program, this is not while they're still in the program, they're in the program 2 years later after they've gone through it and now they're living their lives on their own without this additional program, they are on average maintaining a 1-point drop in HbA1c, which is blood sugar. And that's very, very significant because the scale for diabetes in terms of what it means to be diabetic or not is a very, very small scale. So that's 1-point drop. And for example, in the United States, people, obese participants that completed the program lost on average 10 pounds. And that's not a measure of direct measure of diabetes, for example, but it's a very important factor in health management.
Like you feel like there's some sort of progress if they watched what they eat, so eventually they lost some weight. What are the challenges that you've been facing in the U.S.? That's the first question, and outside the U.S. and West Bank and in Kenya, and eventually what are the challenges that you think you might face in Egypt?
Yeah, so challenges, I think every community has its own challenge, but some are also very universal. So our program is, the first thing we do when we go to a new community is try to make it applicable and relatable to that community. And since we work around the world, that can be a little bit of a challenge. But as you mentioned, we started abroad. We started in the West Bank, so I think we started being very sensitive to these challenges. Another one, especially working in the Middle East, as we're expanding with UNRWA across several areas with instability. We are working. We were originally going to work in Syria as well as Lebanon and Jordan and the occupied Palestinian territories, but now, we can't work in Syria, for example, because of the instability. So that is one challenge. As much as
I think this is an area where it needs a lot of attention.
Exactly. But one thing I think to point out is that we just trained a lot of UNRWA nurses just last week actually to provide this diabetes program for their population. And this is an organization that was dealing with, ISIS taking over the refugee camp in Syria.
My gosh.
And sometimes people think something like diabetes, it's not urgent, but if an organization like UNRWA is dealing with this problem, which is, one of the #1 killers in the world, diabetes,
yes.
It is urgent. It's a silent killer, it's a slow killer.
It is.
But I think as countries put it off for more urgent things like Ebola and violence and instability, I think eventually down the line it's going to catch up, and we're seeing that in the United States where now
because all the focus was on the heart and heart attacks, and right?
Yeah, but but the good thing about that is heart disease is very closely related to diabetes.
Yes.
And I think if you deal with one, you tend to deal with both. But it's but both take a very long time to develop. And if you don't start working on it now, eventually you're going to have a country with a huge population with diabetes, and that's going to be expensive, and that's going to hurt families. And
I want to get to the downside of it on the insurance companies and everything, but I really think part of what you had mentioned, the fact that those diabetic patients are in a program, somehow, whether directly or indirectly, they're being monitored, and they monitor their own selves. So they can actually not really benefit as much as they would desire from the actual diabetes, but they monitor everything else in their bodies. They'll pay more attention to their heart condition, cholesterol level, and all that.
Exactly. And in our U.S. program, we deal with diabetes as well as heart disease and obesity, and these are all very much interlinked. In fact, in our diabetes programming, we include a component on heart disease as well. And to be very honest, none of this is rocket science. When somebody finds out they're diabetic or pre-diabetic, which some of my friends and family members know, they ask me, what do I do? How do I eat? How do I exercise? And the great thing is that all of these diseases, they're not only preventable and manageable, but they're very simple solutions. All of it is eating healthier and exercising more, and a diabetic diet looks very similar to what a healthy, normal diet should be, which makes it easier for a whole family to do together, regardless if
whether you're diabetic or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any support from, for instance, the local government and the West Bank, or here in the U.S., any of the governments are helping out?
Yes, absolutely. So we as an organization, we are based in the United States, but our projects are around the world, and we typically partner with government organizations. So in the U.S., we partner with departments of health across Appalachia, Kentucky, and I think we're going to continue that model in other states as well. In Jordan, we work with the Ministry of Health as well as the Royal Health Awareness Society. So,
and how important is that? Because now, I'm heading in the direction where I want you to be able to partner up with the government in Egypt, but I want to know what are the steps to be taken, and how can we facilitate and make your life easy in order to be able to help our population there.
Absolutely. So we have been in conversations with the Ministry of Health in Egypt. I think it's very, very timely that they recently set up a non-communicable disease unit within the ministry just 4 or 5 months ago, and I think that would be by far one of the most optimal partners to work with and channels of distribution, I guess you can say, in that country, because the ministry already has clinics and nurses working across the country, so we can very easily access and provide the program to the entire population of Egypt. And that is the model that we've been doing, for example, in the Kingdom of Jordan. That is something that we can do on a large scale and have a large impact. So it's definitely very important that...
So do you contract out? Do you contract with them? Do you send your crew to help educate, build units? How does it happen?
Yeah, so we definitely partner, and the great thing about this program is that it's the most important ingredient and resource is humans and people. So what we do is because we have this program, we work with a trainer who will go, for example, to the Ministry of Health and train all of the nurses who are already there to provide this program at the clinics that are already there to their population.
So very low cost.
Very low cost,
yes.
And we use pre-existing organizations, pre-existing staff.
Very smart.
And we're not there to build another clinic.
Yes.
We are there to help the pre-existing health infrastructure work better and work smarter with the resources that they already have.
Excellent. Do you have what kind of source of communication you would have with the local partners, like in the local clinics? Do you assign like supervisors or anything of that matter?
So I think one of the first steps is we provide a training.
Okay.
So we would bring nurses, various staff together and train them in this program, in this model, provide them with a curriculum, and then they, within their clinics, and this can be in Cairo and then in Aswan and Alexandria, places throughout the country. And the nurses would work within their own communities that they already work in and provide this program. We try to work within the pre-existing supervisory structure. So, if the ministry has a pre-existing chain of authority and how things run, we work within that infrastructure.
Sure. I would have many more questions to Ms. Lang right after this break. We'll see you after the break. So welcome back to American Pulse with Ms. Leslie Lang, the Senior Vice President of Microclinic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you again.
And I would actually like to ask you what kind of materials you use in the program.
So we use a variety of materials. As I mentioned before, we have a curriculum that we train the trainers on to provide to the community. But in particular for Egypt, we have developed, with support from the Shafiq Gaber Foundation, these clips in Egyptian to talk in Egyptian Arabic, exactly, to address the 4 M's that we talked about earlier. So it's a very fun animation that just shows a typical family eating together, exercising together, and yeah, it's one of the tools that we would love to use to share with the community.
Sure, I would like my viewers to watch this, so we'll get back to you right after this.
بابا، عمو أبو أمير على التليفون.
الو، يا اهلا بابو امير.
ازيك يا ابو سامي؟ انا طالع اتمشى شويه في المنطقه، قلت اعدي عليك اذا تحب تنزل تتمشى معايا.
نمشي؟ والله يا صاحبي انا مشغول شويه، معلش مش هينفع. انا قلبي كان حاسس ان في مصيبه.
مشغول ايه وبتاع ايه؟ ده حتى الواتساب قال لي انكم قاعدين بتتفرجوا على التلفزيون، يعني لا شغله ولا مشغله.
يا راجل ده انا بهزر معاك. بيني وبينك انا لسه متعشي وتقلت شويه في العشاء، حاسس نفسي كده مش قادر اتحرك.
حضر لي نفسك بقى يا استاذ، انا جاي اخدك.
أبو أمير جاي ياخدك تعملوا رياضة، صح؟
لا يا ستي، المره دي عايز انزل امشي معاه، وانا بصراحه تعبان ومش قادر امشي.
ايه يا بابا، انا عايز اجي معاك كمان يا بابا.
عارف يا أبو سامي، ده المشي بعد الأكل كويس جدا وضروري، وخصوصا لمرض السكر. على رأي المثل، اتعشى واتمشى.
بابا، انت قلقان ان عمو ابو امير انشط واسرع منك في المشي؟
لا طبعا، انا كمان نشيط. قوموا يا عيال البسوا، خلينا ننزل نمشي شويه ونتنشط. تصدق بالله ان الحكايه دي مش صعبه زي ما تخيلت ولا حاجه. احنا مشينا دلوقتي تقريبا نص ساعه ولا حسيت بيها.
يا ابو سامي، في الحركه بركه، والمشي والرياضه شيئين ضروريين جدا للجسم، وخصوصا للي عندهم سكر، لانه بيسيطر على نسبه السكر في الجسم وبيقلل ضغط الدم وبيحرق الاكل الزياده اللي انت لسه واكله قبل شويه، ولا ايه؟
والله يا ابو امير معاك حق، مع اني تعبت بس حاسس كده اني احسن بكتير. اتفضل ادخل كده نعزمك على حاجه. تعالى اقول لك كده حاجه يا راجل. طب تصدق بالله احنا جوعنا بعد المشي ده.
ابو سامي، وبعدين معاك.
يا راجل ده انا بهزر معاك، انت صدقت ولا ايه؟ مر عليا بكره عشان نتمشى شويه بعد العشاء.
ممارسة النشاط البدني بما لا يقل عن 30 دقيقة يوميا يساعد مريض السكري على الحفاظ على وزن صحي وعلى الحفاظ على صحة الذراعين والقدمين. حافظ على نشاطك.
So yeah, this is a very interesting animation videos, and it's actually fun. I kind of like it.
Does it remind you of, I know, now you live in New York City, but having grown up in Egypt, does it remind you of how you grew up?
Yes, it's a lot of fun. It actually also reminds me with the animation that we used to watch in the month of Ramadan, where they have like those all nice shows and things, and it's funny. It's actually, I think, with these kind of clips that you can reach to the average individual Egyptian. They'll get into every door, whether, it doesn't really matter their background, whether they're rich or poor or mid-class, high class, low class. You can get into every door in the house, and it's very informative and very self-explanatory.
Yeah, thank you. And that is our goal. We target under-resourced communities, but really this is a disease affecting everyone, and we want to make it accessible. Everything is accessible. When we do our programs, it's not science class. It's a class about, day-to-day life. And as you mentioned, Ramadan is a big time of feasting after a long time of fasting. And I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody had mentioned that people gain on average, more weight during Ramadan.
Yeah, technically they're supposed to lose weight, but somehow they overeat in the non-fasting time and they don't eat. And I think it changes your body clock, and fasting for so long, for so many hours, changes the body ability to burn that much for the eating overnight.
Yeah, so maybe during Ramadan we can show that clip on meals over and over again every night when people are ready to break fast.
Absolutely. Are there any requirements your foundation need to partner up with an Egyptian government, the Egyptian government, for instance, or what do you need? I would really like to help you out. So what do you need beside the conversation, and if you're sending a contract out, is there anything else you need to be done?
Well, I really appreciate that question, and I know we've been focusing on certain types of partnerships, but first of all, we have huge viewership on the show, and the wonderful thing about this problem or this challenge is that the solution is within everybody. There are a lot of problems out there where, we need the government or we need businesses. Every person who's watching your show can choose to live healthier and to try to get their friends and family and support them to live healthier to prevent this disease that's one of the leading causes of death. That being said, what is the best way to help people do this? It's easy to say on a show, live healthy. But how do we use this model to get people together to go through the education program as well as the social support and the screenings? The Egyptian government, the Ministry of Health, I think is the best positioned partner, but we also work with a variety of community groups. So, for example, in the United States, we work across different organizations. So, for example, a hospital or a youth center, sometimes even religious groups, just a variety of groups where anybody that gets people together and wants to make a change, they can. For example, right now we're also in conversations with a UN group, UNFPA YPeer program, and their youth group, which is full of very energetic volunteers. They are another organization that can provide this group-based program to the community across Egypt, and that is another way that I think we can work together in Egypt to make this a solution to the very big challenge that we're talking about today.
Sure. Let's break off a little bit from what we're talking about and talk about your visit to Egypt. How was that?
It was amazing. أنا بحب مصر.
That's nice.
Yeah, I loved it.
You learned that? Where did you learn that?
Well, I learned that from my Egyptian friends when I visited in June of 2013.
Say it again. Can you say it again?
بحب مصر.
Oh, very nice.
So yeah, but when I came back, I learned some modern standard Arabic. I was very inspired, from the informal interactions with my friends there. And then I learned it was أنا أحب. Is that
yes,
the more formal way?
It's the more like, you know, this is when you write a letter or, you know, just more formal.
And then one of the lessons was Masr Jamila Jedan, and then I, you know, of course, in Egyptian or Egyptian Arabic, it should be Masr Gamila Gadan. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
So I was there with the Shafiq Gabra Fellowship Program, and
Sure.
I think as ambassadors of both countries, you know, we always want to show the best of our countries, and
Yes.
I got to learn from the best, and you know, hopefully learn, you know, some very amazing things about the country.
It's amazing how people, like the minute I ask you about Egypt, and it's, you know, you just had that big smile on your face, and it's, you've been there once, right?
Yeah, just once.
So, so how come Egypt brings that much joy to the people when they go there? It's like, I mean, I've traveled all over the world pretty much, and you know, maybe I'm a biased Egyptian, but when it comes from somebody like you, like, it seemed like you really had enjoyed your time there.
Absolutely, and you know, most people go to Egypt to see the pyramids, but you know, at the end of the day, it's the people. I was so inspired by the people I met there. Just so much energy, especially among the young people, the youth. A lot of hope and a lot of inspiration. You know, just very intelligent, warm people who want to make a change, a positive change for their country, and it was just very inspiring to be a part of that.
Would you consider going back to Egypt?
I would love to, and you know, I think that's one of the reasons I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you on the show today, because having had this opportunity to be in Egypt at a critical time, you know, one thing I ask myself is, as an American, as somebody who lives in California, what can I offer to this country of, you know, 80 million people? And you know, this is my role of at a organization that has a very, very influential and impactful health model. And we've worked basically across the Middle East, and Egypt is really the heart of the Middle East. And I think this is something I want to offer as an individual and as part of my organization. And you know, it is, I think, you know, a dream of mine personally, and as well as, I think, a mission for our organization to serve this country that I think has meant a lot to me, as well as yeah, many others who participated in this program.
It strikes me when I meet people like yourself, and you know, who are devoting their life and a career to helping others, and at the same time watching the news, having people in the show, you know, talking politically, and you know, we hear about these groups where killing, beheading, kidnapping, and you know, I understand the world is different, but how can we emphasize the good work and try to help people out to achieve rather than destroy?
That's a very good, big question, but a very good question.
I hope there's an answer to it.
Yeah, and you know, I think a lot of the news that comes out of the Middle East is about this sort of violence and this destruction, and it's terrible, and it's affecting more and more people, but a lot of us, you know, some people have a role to play in that, in the solution to that, but not all of us can. And what I really strongly believe in for this program and this intervention is that we all have a role to play in the solution to the #1 killer in the world. And that's very serious in terms of numbers. You know, however many ISIS or other, you know, violent deaths that are caused, still, you know, these diseases, heart disease, diabetes, are the #1 killer, and they're silent killers. And we can all play a role in that solution just by being more conscious and aware of how we live and how we influence the people around us. And this is what I believe as an individual, and I think what we believe as an organization. We have a motto that says, I can influence my health, I can influence the health of those around me, and together we can influence the health of the entire community. And that applies for health, but that applies in all sorts of other behaviors and attitudes as well. I think being, you know, a kind, compassionate, non-violent individual and sharing those philosophies with your community is, you know, really just how that sort of movement
And it creates a positive environment, right? It creates like a positive energetic environment.
Absolutely.
Do you see that media could be a good tool for you to use to market for your product?
Absolutely, and I think being on the show, showing those video clips, the more people hear about it, I think the more people are aware of it. Just with those numbers, 1 in 6 Egyptian adults having diabetes, how many people actually talk about it or hear about it in the media and really address it as a problem together? I think the media helps raise awareness that yes, there is a problem, and it's not just me alone, but it's a huge part of my community. That raises awareness. And what is the solution? I think the media can be a part of it, absolutely. That's why we created these animation clips. It's a way to share this with the community on a big level. So our programs, we work very closely with the community, and we can reach community by community at a time at scale. But there's nothing like the media that can reach, half of Egypt, 40 million people all at once.
Yeah. Well, let's watch another clip, and then we'll see you right after the break.
الله على الرز المعمر ده. اتفضلوا يا ولاد. ابو سامي اديني طبعك.
بقول لك ايه، سلام، بتزيديهم شويه، كمان حته لحمه كده وشويه رز.
لا يا بابا كفايه كده، مش كويس عشانك انت عندك سكر. اصل يا بابا النهارده ادونا حصه في المدرسه عن مرض السكر، وبيقولوا انه مرضى السكر لازم يكون اكلهم صحي.
ويطلع ايه بقى مرض السكر ده يا ام العريف؟
هو ببساطه ارتفاع نسبه السكر في الدم بسبب عدم انتاج الجسم للانسولين، او بسبب ان الجسم مش بيستخدم الانسولين اللي بينتجه البنكرياس.
تعرفت منين بقى ان شاء الله ان انا عندي السكر؟
معقولة يا بابا؟ انت مرات بتكون حاسس نفسك جعان او تعبان وبتشرب مية كتيرة. وبتروح على الحمام كتير قوي. كل اعراض مرض السكر. اقول لك بصراحه ماما قالت لي كمان.
الحمد لله انا ما عنديش الاعراض دي.
لا يا سامي، دول بيقول ممكن يكون ملوش اي اعراض المرض ده، وكمان مرض السكر ده وراثي. يعني اذا كان في تاريخ العيله في حد متصاب بمرض السكر، احتمال كبير انه اي حد من افراد العيله يتصاب بنفس المرض.
يعني ممكن يكون عندي مرض السكر؟
لا، اذا بتحافظ على صحتك وبتاكل اكل صحي وبتمارس التمارين الرياضيه وبتروح للدكتور تكشف عنده باستمرار، هتحمي نفسك من المرض ده.
متشكرين يا دكتوره سهلوا على الكلام اللي بتفكرينا بيه ده. بقول لك ايه بقى، يلا ناكل عشان الاكل هيبرد وانا هموت من الجوع.
مرض السكري يحدث عندما يعجز البنكرياس عن إنتاج مادة الأنسولين بكمية كافية، أو عندما يعجز الجسم من استخدام تلك المادة بشكل فعال، وهذا قد يؤدي إلى حدوث أضرار وخيمة في الكثير من أعضاء الجسد. حتى يسيطر مريض السكري على هذا المرض، يجب تناول الأكل الصحي بكميات معتدلة، وممارسة الرياضة، وزيارة الطبيب بشكل مستمر.
الو، ايوه يا ام سامي، جبت القرنبيط وجبت الجزر. ايه، عيش اسمر؟ طيب ماشي.
بابا هي ماما عايزه ايه؟
عايزانا نجيب عيش اسمر. اجري ياض يا سامي، روح هات لنا كيسين عيش، واحد ابيض واحد اسمر. انا اسمر قال.
بابا هو العيش الابيض احسن ولا القمح؟
والله يا بنتي بيقولوا يعني ان الاسمر احسن، قال عشان فيه حبوب قمح كامله. وبقول لك ايه، ما تسالنيش لا ليه ولا ازاي، لما نبقى نروح على البيت ابقي اسال امك.
اهو يا بابا كيسين عيش زي ما انت قلت لي بالظبط.
ماما حذري فزري، شفتي بابا جاب ايه؟ ده جايب عيش ابيض وعيش قمح كمان. طب اذا انا ما بحبش العيش القمح يعني لازم اكله. طبعا يا بنتي، ده العيش القمح ده احسن بكتير من العيش الابيض، وخصوصا لمرض السكر. بتعرفي ليه؟ طيب ليه؟ لان العيش الابيض ده متصنع وبيرفع مستوى السكر في الدم بسرعة، زي الرز الابيض والبطاطس والمكرونة البيضة والنشويات بشكل عام. هي دي النشويات اللي بتتحول لسكر بشكل سريع في الجسم. طيب هي فين المشكلة؟ المشكلة بقى ان الدكتور بتاع بابا حكالي انه مريض السكر لما يكون مستوى السكر في الدم عنده عالي بيضر جسمه جدا، عشان كده مش لازم ياكل الأطعمة اللي بترفع مستوى السكر في الدم. طيب والعيش القمح ده احسن حاجة للي عندهم مرض السكر، واللي بياكلوا منه باعتدال ده احسن ليهم اصلا من العيش الابيض، لانه ما بيرفعش نسبة السكر في الدم بسرعة. وحتى انت يا سلوى مع انه وزنك ممتاز وجسمك صحي، بيفضل العيش القمح افضل ليكي ومفيد جدا، لانه في حبوب كاملة وفي الياف ومواد مغذية بتحميكي من السكر في المستقبل. وبالنسبة للعيش الابيض بقى اللي جايبه بابا، انا رايحة ارجعه السوبر ماركت واجيب بداله عيش قمح.
ايه ده؟ فين كيس العيش الابيض؟ انا كنت حاطه هنا. واد يا سامي، انا مش قلت لك تجيب كيسين، واحد ابيض واحد اسمر؟ هو راح فين؟ انا متاكد ان انا حطيته في الشنطه.
على المواد الغذائية المليئة بالحبوب الكاملة والألياف واللحوم الخالية من الدهون والكثير من الخضروات، والتقليل من مدخول السكر والخبز الأبيض والأرز والمعكرونة البيضاء يساعد مريض السكري على السيطرة على نسبة السكر في الدم.
So welcome back, another enjoyable animation, and I personally can vouch for this because I'm a quick learner. When I watch and hear things, I'm gonna confess to my viewers, I'm not the best reader out there, but I always like to buy books and tapes, so I learn faster and I remember things that I hear and watch. So I think these animations could be a very good tool to get the message across.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Morgan, and I think that's why you're in media, right? I mean, a lot of people out there share that same visual way of learning, where sometimes the biggest impact is something that you can see as well as hear and experience.
So I would like to also know if what is required by the local partners. Do you have any facilitators or controllers or people that can help getting the program going after you setting it up?
Absolutely. So we partner with a variety of organizations. So we talked about the Ministry of Health in a variety of countries, community organizations, also hospital clinics, and we've been talking about how to reach the entire country. But I always say, if anybody, any organization, one hospital, one community organization wants to make a difference in their own community, we'll make it happen. So if there's any organization that just has people who want to do this and who want to partner and work together, we will make it happen. So we have our Facebook page, Microclinic International. We have our website, microclinics.org, where people can just send a direct email to me online or reach us, send us a message on Facebook. And I appreciate this question coming up again, because I can tell you really want to.
I really want to make it happen.
Exactly.
And actually, I would like to, to use this, to seize the moment and propose that, American Pulse will be the top facilitator of your program in Egypt. So I would actually, because I see how much the country can benefit. First, health-wise of the population. Second, the cost, because the cost of healthcare is crazy, up in the roof.
Yeah.
And if we can get that down, we're helping the country in two different directions, by having healthy people and less costly medications for diabetic patients. And also, I would like to use it in order to set up a system where once we set up a system for education of diabetes and heart diseases, it's going to be very easy to reach out. Once you have the database, once you have all the channels in order, it's easy to apply anything else.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for your support, and
My pleasure.
and it would be a pleasure to work together, absolutely. And you know, I think really it takes motivated people, and as you mentioned, it really is a win-win-win.
I wanted to know what's the win-win-win in your mission statement.
Sure, absolutely. And the first, you know, the first community that we serve, the first people to win, of course, are the individuals who are preventing and managing this disease for themselves. You know, they are getting healthier. They are not only living longer, but better quality of life. They're not spending, you know, the last couple of years, you know, putting insulin into themselves and lying on a bed. They are, you know, doing something to improve their lives and the lives of their family, their friends, their community. And as you mentioned, you know, when we are doing that, we're also helping the healthcare system. The healthcare system, you know, doctors get frustrated from, you know, these very expensive procedures and, you know, later stage interventions. So when, you know, people are coming back to the ER for the 5th time because they've had, you know, the 5th heart attack, you know, had somebody just brought this person into the program maybe, you know, 10 years ago, all of this could be prevented. So the health care system can really focus on the things that matter, that are not preventable, instead of these very costly interventions. And of course, the country, which, you know, with 8 million diabetics, the country is the one that's going to be subsidizing a lot of the medical expenses. Absolutely. And it's a win on the country level, or in countries with more privatized health systems. You know, it's the health insurance companies that are benefiting because they're the ones that are subsidizing these very costly interventions.
سلامتك يا بابا. ايه شكلها بتوجع قوي؟ لا يا حبيبي، انا اتعودت خلاص. وبعدين انا بكون احسن كتير لما اتاكد من مستوى السكر في الدم عندي. هو انت يعني لازم تتاكد من السكر كل يوم؟ الدكتورة قالت لي انه مهم جدا للي عندهم سكر انهم يتاكدوا وبشكل مستمر عشان يعرفوا قد ايه مستوى السكر في الدم، هل هو واطي قوي ولا عالي قوي. يعني اذا كان واطي يبقى لازم اكل واشرب عشان يعلى، واذا كان عالي قوي يبقى لازم اخد الدواء واتحرك اكتر. ياه، ده مهم قوي. طب دايما خد الدواء علشان تبقى كويس. لا يا حبيبي، انا اذا خدت منه كتير او قليل او ما مشيتش حسب تعليمات الدكتور هبقى بضر جسمي زيه زي اي دواء تاني. هيحصل ايه يعني؟ اذا اخدت من الدواء كتير نسبة السكر ممكن تبقى قليلة قوي في الدم، وبعرق قوي، وممكن احس نفسي دايخ وبحس كده برعشة. يا ماما، وهتعمل ايه؟ باكل اي حاجة فيها سكر وهرجع طبيعي من تاني. خوفتني. لازم دايما اخلي في جيبي حاجة حلوة عشانك وعشان انا كمان. يا عفريت، خليني اقوم اتمشى شوية. طب ما انت بتاكل قليل وبتمشي وكده، ولسه الدكتور بيخليك تاخد الدواء ده، يعني انت مش بتستفيد حاجة خالص. اوبا، ده انا النهاردة عندي ميعاد مع الدكتورة عشان تتأكد من مستوى السكر، وبالمرة برضو تتأكد من الأدوية. ما تيجي معايا اهو تسمع منها وتستفيد؟
اسمح لي أهنيك يا أبو سامي، خلال الفترة اللي فاتت خففت وزنك وضغطك بقى مظبوط، حتى مستوى السكر في الدم عندك اتحسن بشكل ملحوظ.
يعني يا دكتورة الأكل الصحي والمشي اللي كان بابا عاملهم ما راحوش على الفاضي؟
لا طبعا، أكيد مش على الفاضي، وكمان هنخفف الدواء لبابا لأن صحته بقت أحسن ووزنه قل، وكمان بيراجع العيادة دايما وبيعمل فحوصات بصورة دورية.
يعني دلوقتي احنا مش هنخاف من السكر، السكر هو اللي لازم يخاف منك يا بابا.
مراجعة الطبيب المختص وإجراء الفحوصات الدورية ومراقبة مستوى السكر في الدم ومستوى ضغط الدم بشكل روتيني يساعد مريض السكري في السيطرة على هذا المرض.
Do you think, and I'm just brainstorming with you, do you think we can use also the local private physicians somehow to help getting the message for us out and help them in an indirect way of doing something good for the community.
Absolutely. And one way that we get patients into the program is by working with physicians. So, for example, if you're an endocrinologist or even just a primary care doctor, you're a busy person. You don't have time to walk through every
educate
patient.
every patient, right?
Exactly. So in a lot of our programs, it's the doctors, the nurses who see a patient who can benefit from this and refers them into the program. That's one way. Another way is, but we definitely have, for example, sessions on ophthalmology about eye care and diabetes or heart disease, cardiologists who can come and talk about
Physically
this.
come. I'm talking about not a YouTube video. You're talking about the physical interaction.
Yeah, well, both actually. Both are.
Yeah,
we've
both.
done both. So we've had physicians come and give presentations.
Okay.
And that's obviously on a more limited scale in terms of numbers of people, but it's nice because it's direct. You can talk to the community. But also through media, as you mentioned, we've created some videos as well.
And points of reference, so they can always. You don't want to bring that physician over and over.
Exactly.
If they can listen to the session the first time and then go back to the videos and just refresh their memory
Exactly. So if you interview a cardiologist or an endocrinologist next time, we can show clips of the show to the program.
Absolutely, absolutely. This seems to be a very wonderful cause, and I think you just started with these chronic diseases, but you don't mind adding on more things as we go, right?
Absolutely. So in
like hepatitis, I know it's a huge thing in Egypt. So it's a big thing in Egypt, hepatitis. So we want to educate the viewers and population on how to avoid contracting the infection of the virus.
Yeah, and I know because I have a good Egyptian friend who had a family member who passed away of I think it's hepatitis C.
Hepatitis C is the major epidemic problem. Right?
Absolutely, and we basically any health challenge that can be addressed through changes in health behavior is what we can help address. So if it's, for example, we've expanded into maternal and child health, hepatitis C, there are certain things that people can do to prevent spreading that disease. It's all based, again, on this model of human beings working together to change the way that they think and the way that they act around diseases so that they don't spread and so that they don't get worse if they already have them.
So you don't mind, I would like to repeat the question again, you don't mind producing more animation videos with other sort of diseases like hepatitis C?
Well, that would be wonderful. I think if we found the right partners, that would absolutely be a great opportunity. And just as a point of reference, where we work in the United States, people have approached us and said, well, we have a huge asthma problem in our community, and a lot of asthma management, relates to the 4 M's that you're talking about, and healthy lifestyles. Can we incorporate that into our community? And absolutely yes. As long as I think this model is applicable to so many things in healthcare and beyond, and we are very eager to partner with the community to address their concerns and their challenges. So whatever that is for Egypt, hepatitis C or other health challenges that can be addressed by changing people's lifestyles, we would be very, very eager to work in that area.
I will be very happy to do 2 things: partner up with you as an American Pulse program to help educate and prevent the viewers from getting into those chronic diseases. So this is something I will do right away. I'm actually going to reach out to everybody that I know. I'm well connected with a lot of top doctors in Egypt and a lot of people in the healthcare industry, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to sponsor part of the program for the good cause. So I really think it's a very, very important project that needs to be launched, and I know the benefit is not going to be only just getting to the population. It's also going to affect the government. It's going to affect the prosperity and welfare of the lifestyle of the people, as well as the long-term having a data in place, being able to reach certain groups of the population, help them to prevent more epidemic diseases from rising. So I really thank you very much for being on the show, and I'm hoping that we can arrange something soon where you can go to Egypt and sign contracts with the Ministry of Health.
Well, thank you, Dr. Morgan. I can tell you have a very strong passion for health, and I have a very strong passion for Egypt. So I think together we can, and with other partners as well, make a very, very big and positive change for the country.
Let's make it happen. Thank you. Thank you very much, my viewers, for being on the show tonight, watching us on the show tonight. I was very happy and honored and privileged to have Miss Leslie Lang. Thank you.